It was incredibly emotional. I think when your loved ones pass away, typically there's, you have some videos or maybe voicemail.
Riley Keough just pulled off the most ruthless family takeover in Hollywood history, and her own grandmother never saw it coming. While America was mourning the tragic death of Lisa Marie Presley, Riley was quietly orchestrating a power grab that would leave Priscilla Presley completely locked out of the Elvis empire she helped build for over 5 decades. Here's what really happened behind those closed doors at Graceland. And trust me, it's way more calculated than anyone wants to admit. January 2023. Lisa Marie Presley dies suddenly at just 54 years old. The family is devastated, the world is in shock, and everyone assumes Priscilla, Elvis's widow, the woman who turned Graceland into a tourist gold mine, would naturally step in to protect the family legacy. But Riley had other plans. See, while everyone else was grieving, Riley was already moving. She didn't wait for the funeral flowers to wilt. She didn't give her grandmother time to process the loss of her only daughter. No, Riley went straight to the lawyers with documents that would make her the sole trustee of everything Lisa Marie left behind. And when I say everything, I mean the entire Presley empire. Graceland, the business ventures, the licensing deals, the whole multi-million-dollar operation that keeps Elvis's memory alive. But here's where it gets really wild. Riley wasn't just claiming inheritance rights. She was essentially staging a corporate coup using her dead mother's signature on documents that Priscilla claims were forged. Yeah, you heard that right. Priscilla Presley, the woman who knew Lisa Marie better than anyone, looked at those papers and said, "That's not my daughter's signature." Think about that for a second. We're talking about a grandmother who just lost her daughter, watching her granddaughter wave around supposedly authentic documents that would strip away everything Priscilla had worked to preserve. The woman who opened Graceland to the public, who spent decades protecting Elvis's image, who literally built the foundation of their family's wealth, suddenly she's being told she has no say in any of it. And Riley? She's playing this like a chess master. While Priscilla is questioning the authenticity of the documents, Riley's already talking to the courts about how Lisa Marie clearly wanted her to take over. She's painting herself as the responsible choice, the level-headed one who can handle the business side of their complicated family empire. But let's be real about what was actually happening here. This wasn't some grieving granddaughter reluctantly accepting responsibility. This was a calculated move to consolidate power while the family was at their most vulnerable. Riley knew exactly what she was doing when she filed those papers. She knew Priscilla would be too devastated to fight back immediately. She counted on that window of grief to establish her legal position. The timing tells you everything you need to know. Lisa Marie dies in January. By the time the family even begins to process what's happened, Riley's already got lawyers filing motions to establish her as the sole decision-maker for an empire worth over $100 million. That's not accident. That's strategy. And here's the part that probably hurt Priscilla the most. Riley did all of this while publicly maintaining that everything was fine between them. She's giving interviews talking about how much she loves her grandmother, how level-headed she is, how they've never not been happy. Meanwhile, she's literally fighting her in court over documents that could be fake. You want to know what real power looks like? It's a 33-year-old actress going toe-to-toe with a 78-year-old woman who helped create the Elvis brand and winning. Because that's exactly what happened. Riley didn't just challenge Priscilla, she steamrolled her. The court sided with Riley. All of Priscilla's questions about those signatures, all of her concerns about the validity of the documents, all of her decades of experience managing the Presley legacy, none of it mattered. Riley walked away with complete control of everything, including the power to make decisions about Graceland's future without consulting anyone. But here's what makes this whole situation even more twisted. Riley's not just controlling the business now, she's controlling the narrative. She's the one telling reporters that the family is stronger than ever, that there's no rift, that anyone suggesting otherwise makes her sad. She's literally rewriting the story of what happened while she's still holding the smoking gun. And Priscilla? She's forced to play along. What choice does she have? Challenge her granddaughter publicly and risk looking like a bitter old woman fighting over money? Or smile for the cameras, while watching everything she helped build get handed over to someone who outmaneuvered her when she was at her lowest point? The most shocking part isn't that Riley won, it's how completely she won. She didn't just get control of Lisa Marie's estate, she got control of the entire family legacy, and she did it so smoothly that half the world thinks this was all Lisa Marie's idea. But was it really? Or did Riley just execute the perfect family coup while everyone was too heartbroken to see it coming? What the public doesn't understand is that this wasn't just some family squabble over paperwork. When Riley seized control of the Presley empire, she didn't just take money, she took something far more valuable and irreplaceable. She took the power to decide how Elvis Presley is remembered forever. Let me break down what Priscilla actually lost in this legal battle, because it's way bigger than anyone realizes. First, there's Graceland itself. We're not talking about some family home with sentimental value. Graceland generates millions of dollars every single year from tourists who come to pay the tourists their respects to the king of rock and roll. But more than that, whoever controls Graceland controls how Elvis's story gets told to the world. They decide what gets preserved, what gets changed, what gets commercialized, and what stays sacred. Priscilla spent over 40 years making those decisions. She's the one who turned Elvis's private home into a pilgrimage site while somehow keeping it respectful. She balanced the business side with the personal side, making sure that tourists could experience Elvis's world without turning it into some tacky theme park. That takes incredible judgment and deep understanding of both Elvis's legacy and what the fans want. Now, all of that decision-making power belongs to Riley, a woman who didn't even grow up in that world, who wasn't there during Elvis's peak years, who doesn't have the same emotional connection to preserving his authentic memory. She's an actress from Hollywood, not someone who lived and breathed the Elvis phenomenon for decades. But it gets worse. Riley doesn't just control the physical property. She controls the entire business empire that Lisa Marie left behind. We're talking about licensing deals worth tens of millions of dollars. Every Elvis product, every documentary, every biopic, every commercial use of his name and image, Riley now has the final say on all of it. Think about what that means for Priscilla. She went from being the primary guardian of Elvis's legacy to having zero input on how her late husband's memory gets used to make money. If Riley wants to license Elvis's image for some questionable commercial deal, Priscilla can't stop her. If Riley decides to change how Graceland operates or what parts of it stay open to the public, Priscilla has no voice in that decision. And here's the part that probably keeps Priscilla up at night. Riley has no obligation to consult her on any of this. The legal documents don't require family input or approval. Riley can make unilateral decisions about an empire that Priscilla helped build from the ground up, and there's absolutely nothing Priscilla can do about it. But the most brutal part of this whole situation, Riley positioned herself as the responsible choice, the one who could handle the complicated business side of their family legacy. She convinced the courts that Priscilla, despite having successfully managed these affairs for decades, somehow wasn't capable of continuing to do so. That's not just taking someone's power away, that's publicly declaring them incompetent to handle what they've been successfully managing their entire adult life. Imagine being 78 years old and having your own granddaughter essentially argue in court that you're too old or too out of touch to protect the legacy you've been safeguarding since before she was even born.
The financial stakes here are absolutely staggering. The Elvis estate was valued at over $100 million when Lisa Marie inherited it,
And that was before all the recent renewed interest in Elvis from movies and documentaries. Riley didn't just inherit a business. She inherited what's essentially a money printing machine that will keep generating wealth for generations. And Priscilla? She went from being a decision maker in that empire to being completely on the outside. She can watch Riley make choices about Elvis's legacy, but she can't influence those choices anymore. She can see licensing deals she disagrees with, but she can't stop them. She can witness changes to Graceland that she thinks are wrong, but her opinion doesn't matter legally. The psychological warfare aspect of this is incredible. Riley managed to take everything while maintaining this public narrative that she's just a loving granddaughter doing what's best for the family. She's given interviews talking about how much she respects Priscilla, how she values her input, how they're closer than ever. But actions speak louder than words, and Riley's actions were crystal clear. She fought her grandmother in court to establish that she, and she alone, had the right to control everything. That's not collaboration, that's domination. The most twisted part? Riley now has the power to decide whether Priscilla's voice even gets heard in the future. If Priscilla wants to share her memories of Elvis, if she wants to set the record straight about their relationship, if she wants to influence how his story gets told, she has to hope Riley approves. That's not just winning a legal battle, that's completely rewriting the power structure of one of America's most famous families and doing it so smoothly that most people think it was all perfectly reasonable. But here's where Riley's power grab gets absolutely twisted, and honestly, this is the part that probably broke Priscilla's heart more than losing the money or the business control. Riley now has the power to decide where her own grandmother will be buried when she dies. Let that sink in for a moment. We're talking about Graceland's meditation garden, where Elvis himself is buried alongside his parents and Lisa Marie. This isn't just some family cemetery, this is literally the most sacred ground in rock and roll history. Millions of fans make pilgrimages to this exact spot to pay their respects to the king. And now Riley gets to decide whether Priscilla earns a spot there. The legal documents spell it out in black and white. Riley will, quote, "to the extent of her authority, allow Priscilla to be buried in the garden." Did you catch that phrase? To the extent of her authority. That means Riley has discretion here. She's not required to let Priscilla be buried next to Elvis. She's just allowed to if she feels like it. Think about how absolutely devastating that must be for Priscilla. She was married to Elvis. She lived with him at Graceland. She's the one who made the decision to open the house to the public so fans could connect with his memory. She spent over 4 decades as the primary caretaker of his legacy. And now, her own granddaughter gets to decide whether she's worthy of resting beside him for eternity. But it gets even more twisted. The documents specify that if Priscilla does get buried there, it will be at the location closest to Elvis Presley, without moving any existing gravesite. Translation: Riley controls the real estate, even in death. She gets to decide exactly where Priscilla goes, how close she gets to Elvis, and whether that location is respectful or just an afterthought. This is power on a level that's almost impossible to comprehend. Riley didn't just take control of Priscilla's present, she took control of her eternal rest. She can literally hold Priscilla's final resting place hostage if she ever disagrees with decisions her grandmother makes. And here's what makes this situation even more sick. Riley's acting like she's being generous about it. In interviews, she's saying things like, "I don't know why she wouldn't be buried at Graceland if she wants to be, of course." She's framing it like it's no big deal, like it's obvious that Priscilla would be welcome there. But the legal reality tells a completely different story. Riley made sure those documents gave her complete control over burial decisions. She could have written them to guarantee Priscilla a spot. She could have made it automatic, non-negotiable, set in stone. But she didn't. She kept that power for herself. What kind of person does that? What kind of granddaughter looks at her grandmother and thinks, "You know what? I want to make sure I have leverage over where you spend eternity." Because that's exactly what this is. Ultimate leverage. Imagine being Priscilla right now. Every family disagreement, every business decision, every time she might want to speak up about how Riley's handling the Elvis legacy, there's this unspoken threat hanging over her head. Cross Riley too much, and maybe that burial spot doesn't look so guaranteed anymore. The psychological manipulation here is incredible. Riley gets to play the loving, generous granddaughter in public while holding the most intimate form of control possible over Priscilla's future. She can talk about family unity and love while literally controlling whether Priscilla gets to rest next to the love of her life. And think about this from Elvis's perspective, if he could see what's happening. His widow, the woman who bore his only child, the woman who preserved his home and his memory for decades. She now has to depend on the goodwill of someone who wasn't even born when Elvis died to secure her place beside him. This isn't just about burial plots. This is about the ultimate power trip. Riley has positioned herself as the gatekeeper of Presley family eternity. She gets to decide who belongs in that sacred space and who doesn't. She gets to determine the final chapter of how this family story ends. Literally. The most disturbing part, Riley talks about this like it's normal. Like, of course she should have this power. Like it makes perfect sense that she gets to control her grandmother's final resting place. She's normalized something that's actually completely twisted. Because here's the truth. No granddaughter should have that kind of power over their grandmother. No family member should be able to hold someone's burial location as a bargaining chip. And no 33-year-old should get to decide whether a 78-year-old woman who dedicated her life to preserving a legacy gets to rest beside the man she loved. But that's exactly what happened. Riley didn't just win a legal battle. She won the power to control her family story forever, right down to where their bodies rest when it's all over. So after everything we've just uncovered, the calculated takeover, the business empire seizure, the burial plot power play, Riley and Priscilla want us to believe they're one big happy family. They're putting out statements about how stronger than ever they are, how there's no rift, how anyone suggesting otherwise is just spreading lies. But come on, do they really think we're that stupid? Riley's out here giving interviews, saying things like, anything that would suggest otherwise in the press makes me sad. Because at the end of the day, all she wants is to love and protect Graceland and the Presley family. Meanwhile, she just finished legally bulldozing her grandmother in court to make sure Priscilla has zero say in protecting that exact legacy. And Priscilla? She's forced to play along with this charade. What choice does she have? She can either smile for the cameras and pretend everything's fine, or she can publicly admit that her own granddaughter outmaneuvered her during her most vulnerable moment. Neither option looks good for a 78-year-old woman who's trying to preserve some dignity. But here's what their PR spin can't hide. The power dynamics in this family have permanently shifted, and there's no going back. Riley isn't consulting Priscilla out of respect or family tradition. She's not sharing decision-making authority because she values her grandmother's experience. She controls everything now, and she gets to decide how much input Priscilla has, if any.
That's not a partnership. That's not family harmony. That's one person holding all the cards while the other person has to smile and pretend they're okay with it. The most telling part of all this, Riley's the one controlling the narrative about their relationship now, too. She's the one giving interviews, making statements, deciding what story gets told about how they're getting along. Even their public relationship is something Riley manages. So is this the ultimate act of family protection? Or the most calculated betrayal in celebrity history? Did Riley save the Presley legacy from chaos and mismanagement? Or did she stage a ruthless coup while her family was grieving? Here's what I think. Riley saw an opportunity to consolidate power when everyone else was too devastated to think strategically, and she took it. She wrapped it in language about family responsibility and protecting the legacy, but at the end of the day, she made sure she's the one calling all the shots. And now she gets to control how that story gets told too. What do you think? Was Riley protecting the Presley legacy or pulling off the ultimate family betrayal? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and if you want more shocking celebrity family drama breakdowns like this, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss the real stories behind the headlines.